Hi everybody, Matt back with you. Today we're in Hardcastle Crags, currently at the Hebden Hey Scout Centre, just having fun. The reason we're here today is to look for something that's perhaps not too dissimilar to what I've just climbed through. So when I was younger, I loved myths and legends, stories of the Loch Ness Monster, Abominable Snowman and Robin Hood, all those sort of things. Best of all was finding that there was a particular story right here in Hebden. The story of an outlaw known as Tom Bell, who lived in a labyrinth of caves here near Hebden Hey Scout Centre. So we're going to go and try and find his cave today, because in the past I always used to come with my uncle many years ago on a Sunday, and we'd explore Hardcastle Crags. We kept trying to find it, but to no avail. Of course, back then there wasn't the joy of the internet, but we recently found it. Let's get out of here first. So the story of Tom Bell goes back as far as the 18th century. And Tom Bell was an outlaw who lived in these caves here in Hardcastle Crags. They were reportedly, supposedly, a series of caves like a labyrinth, came out at various hillsides. One would go to Colden, one would come out in Heptonstall. Just a little reminder though, everything I'm telling you is folklore, okay? So don't take it as gospel, and the story has been changed over time. However, Tom Bell used to come out at night and he would go to the local farms and basically ransack them. He would take their treasures, but more importantly he'd also take their animals, food, and bring them back to the cave, and he would stay in the cave during the day and gorge himself. They never managed to find him because he had a very neat little trick of actually putting his boots on back to front, so that actually where it looked like his footsteps had gone, it was actually in reverse, he'd gone the other way. I think that's quite clever. Okay, so here we are at the Hebden Hey Scout Hostel, which is fairly near the cave. Nobody here today. However, we'll just have a quick look at this hostel here. Okay, so one of the hostels here at the Hebden Hey Scout Hostel is actually called the Tom Bell Hostel. Now, this is where there was a location of a former cafe up to about the 1960s. In 1983, these were built. It's a very interesting addition for you to look at, just above the door. So although you might be tempted to think that this is a statue of Kim Jong-un, this is actually supposed to be the face of Tom Bell. This, I suppose they're called grotesques, these, aren't they? This is in the same position that it was when it was on the cafe. And the reason it's in that position, if you look, his eyes are staring up onto the hillside. And it's reported that he is looking at his cave, keeping an eye on whoever tries to find him. So when I heard the story about the little face of Tom Bell looking up towards his cave, I thought I'd best come and check it out. And early in lockdown, I came and started exploring the woods here because there didn't seem to be any definitive record of where this cave was. So it took me a while and ended up on the wrong hillside at one point. But I eventually came across this. So it was snowing when I first came to look here. But somehow it seemed to make things a bit easier to find which one was going to be the cave. And then came across this. I remember this was covered in snow, but actually I think the snow might be easier than the ferns, because it's not very easy to look at. But I could see we were definitely heading towards a cave. Okay. Also, what I could make out in the snow were these markings on this rock here. Now, they might not turn out very well, but they do look like they've been put there rather than it being a natural effect. Now, here we are at what is probably known as Tom Bell's Cave. There's no definite answer. Just remember, this is a folk tale. But I was incredibly excited to find this 2 years ago after 40 years of searching for it. I tried filming it, but actually I was in tears when I tried to do it. So it brought back such strong memories. I really must tell my uncle I found it, shouldn't I? Tom Bell himself, as I say, was supposed to be hiding in the caves here, but he gorged himself on all the things that he stole, and unfortunately actually gorged himself to death, to the point that one day his stomach exploded. Now, because he was an outlaw hiding away in caves, obviously nobody knew where he was, and I guess people might have realised he'd passed away when the robberies stopped. However, 2 children at one point stumbled across the cave, walked in. I think they may have been following their dog or something like that, and they found this body lying there, its stomach burst, and the tree roots, he'd been there so long, the tree roots had come down and had got into his body and had actually made him glow with this natural phosphorescence. It's almost a scene of a horror movie. Unsurprisingly, the children are reported to have run away screaming and never come back. Let's have a look inside. So I've been back a couple of times to look at the cave. Never seem to have a good torch with me. However, today my partner in crime, Tom, is here with his torch. So we're going to have a good look inside. Now, there's not a lot actually to see in the cave, and it doesn't go that far. Reports are that there is a section that goes much lower down. You may have to move some of the rocks to get to it these days, because I think it's been sealed up properly. But if you come with proper climbing equipment, etc., and lots of people, it is possible to kind of lower yourself on a rope into this cave. It might be about 18-foot drop, something like that. So we've been very careful not going down there today. I'm not a professional climber, but I'll show you what we can see. So this was the rock that made me think that I'd found the cave, because this looks like almost like an old doorway. What I think happens now in these caves is it's lived in by animals, because further in you go, it does smell a little bit of, yeah, you know what. This is just still in the entrance of the cave. You can see that we're quite a way in. We haven't come in that way, obviously we've come in this way. But then, certainly now we have a torch, so you can see where it does go further down inside. And if you just look here, look at that. That definitely drops to a level a bit further down. Don't know if we can get any further down there to look today. I'm just going to see if I can just slide down a little bit further just to see what's here. Yeah, I'd say that there's a little space, but it's a bit difficult to tell, isn't it? Whose idea was it to wear white today? General rule applies here, guys. Please be careful if you do come here. Remember, I've just said a minute ago, there's potentially an 18-foot drop. I have no intention of going there today myself. So, you know, and rocks can hurt. Okay, we're heading to another section of the cave. Hi. So, after Tom Bell's passing, it would appear that maybe that was the end of the story. But actually, a century later, the legend of Tom Bell took a very strange new twist. So in 1899, it was reported that in one of the entrances to the caves, they'd found a skull. And this kick-started the interest in Tom Bell again, because they presumed it was actually Tom Bell's skull. Now, this is in the Victorian era, when things like freak shows were quite popular, and people actually came up with things like 8 feet long Neanderthal men, just to draw attention. And unsurprisingly, the story, which now became from an outlaw to a highwayman living in a cave, his skull there and potentially a hordes of treasure in that cave, suddenly brought thousands of people here to the caves to look for the treasure. Naturally, of course, accidents happened. People got lost in the caves, so eventually the caves themselves were sealed, but the skull was taken away to be examined. What it actually found was it could have even been the skull of a prehistoric man, like a Neanderthal man, almost definitely not Tom Bell, and placed there to bring attention to the story when it was found. Unsurprisingly, the person who found it owned the cafe down the hill, so he was quite happy with the attention that these people were bringing into the area. Lots more tea sold. So as I say, the skull was taken away and examined, but obviously it wasn't Tom Bell. However, whilst in Mytholmroyd of all places, in 1953, the skull disappeared and has never been seen since. Now, with modern technology, of course, I suppose it would be more possible to figure out a bit more about it. However, until it's found, we'll never know. So this bit also looks like it goes back quite a long way. I have to get a little bit closer to film it. Let's have a look. I'm trying to get a better look here, just to see. I'm always joined by spiders. How far down that goes, that looks like it goes quite a long way down, doesn't it? Yeah, I think that's the drop down. I don't know if I can go any further. Let's have a go. So yeah, I do think that definitely is the drop down. Apologies, my camera keeps going a different way, but you can probably tell I'm in a little hole here. So it looks like it drops down there and then goes under this rock on the left, but yeah, with no rope, that's as far as I'm going. So just to show you how far down I've come, if you look further up, Tom is somewhere up there. There he is. So I've dropped, I think probably about 12 feet so far just to get to here, but that's definitely as far as I'm going to go today. Yeah, let's see if I can get out. Every time I start to crawl back out, I find another section. I think Tom's panicking in case I disappear and lost forever. This becomes known as Matt's cave. So yeah, definitely getting out now, promise. So that's the end of my little video of crawling through the caves here. A little bit muddy, but it's got the adrenaline going, if nothing else. So there we go, just a bit of a brief history on the legend of Tom Bell and his cave, which goes back, as I say, a couple of 100 years. You will find various versions of this story, one of which might be that it's about somebody called Joseph Bailey, who actually lived in a cave in Hathershelf above Mytholmroyd. And apparently a dog ran into a cave once, and the owner of the dog ran in and came across a wild man in there with a pistol who tried to shoot him. That man, as I say, was called Joseph Bailey, and I think he was eventually deported to Australia after being caught. There are more gruesome versions of this story of birds flying out of the cave with bits of flesh in their mouths, and that's what drew the attention of the people to go in and look. But you keep searching, you'll find different ones. But remember, it's all folklore. It may have some proof in there, some truth as well. But yeah, in terms of a cave that goes miles to different valleys, it's not this one. Okay, I'm going to go and jump in the river. It's absolutely roasting after being in there. So from Tom and myself, we'll see you soon. Take care. Warm.